If we look at the flow we finished with in the last session and zoom out, you can see that our flow is growing in size. Even though it's not terribly complex, it's getting big, and we've only covered 3 intents. If we added just another 3 intents here that needed handling in the flow, imagine how hard to manage it would become. That's why we recommend breaking conversations down into separate flows. We want to keep each flow fairly straightforward to understand. We also want to enable different people to work on a project at the same time, and breaking down conversations into separate flows makes it easier to do. So I'll create 3 new flows: carry on, checked bags, and permitted items. Now that I have my 3 new flows, I want to start copying parts of my conversation to those flows. Let's start with my bag rules carry on branch. I'll copy the if and everything underneath it by just right-clicking or control-clicking and selecting cut. I'll switch over to my carry on flow and paste. Because I just copied the if structure, I need to go back to my original flow and copy the remaining say node. I'll go to the end of my carry-on node and paste it there. I'll repeat this for the checked bag nodes. I need to copy the if and then follow up by copying the lookup. And I'll do the same for permitted items. Now if I go back to my original flow, it looks much simpler, just a lookup node and 3 case nodes. Under each of my case nodes, I need to add a goto node. A goto node does what it sounds like. It tells Cognigy to go to somewhere else. I'll add a goto node under my carry-on case. I'll open the node to edit it, and I'll select the carry-on flow. For the select node, I'll choose Start. What this means is that I want to transfer the conversation over to the carry-on flow and start with this Start node. Let's see how this works. You'll see that the intent is detected and it follows the carry-on branch. It hits the goto node, and then the flow proceeds in the carry-on flow. I'll add goto nodes under my other cases as well, routing them to the start node of the expected flow. So we've dramatically simplified our main flow, which is what we want. But we need to look more closely about how the conversation progresses. I'll say, I need to check if an item is permitted on the plane, and then tweezers. The bot tells me it doesn't understand me, even though I know tweezers is on the list of items I might pack. The reason for this is that execution is taking place in the permitted items flow, and I haven't enabled the pack lexicon for that flow. I'll jump over to the permitted items flow now. I'll click on NLU at the top, then I'll go to Attach Lexicons and select Pack. Finally, I'll build the model. And we'll switch back to Chart View. In the Interaction panel, I'll choose my original flow as the starting point. I'll try again. And now it works as expected. If I turn on Expert mode, I can see exactly what happened. I asked about permitted items, and Cognigy determined my intent. Then it switched the flow over to the permitted items flow. I said I was concerned about tweezers, and it found my slot match. Now I'll ask, is there a fee for checking bags? The bot asks me, which item are you concerned about, instead of helping me with my bag fees. The reason for this is that control has switched over to this permitted items flow, and it doesn't know anything about the intents in my main flow. So what I can do, to the very end of my flow, is add a goto node that returns me to the main flow. It's important that I go to Advanced and select Goto Node and wait for input. This tells Cognigy to stop executing and wait for an input from the user. If I didn't do this, Cognigy would send an input into the main flow, which would then trigger the permitted items intent, which would then go back to the main flow, and so on. So we just want to switch back to the main flow and wait. I'll choose the flow I want and we can test again. And now it asks what type of bag I'll be checking. I need to go to each of my other flows and clean them up. First, I'll go to the carry-on flow. I'll go to NLU and then Attach Lexicons and make sure my baggage lexicon is attached. And I'll build the model. At the end of my flow, I'll add a goto node to switch back to the original flow. And now, in my checked bags flow, I'll attach my baggage lexicon and build. And then I'll add a goto node at the very end. Let's look at some features of the GoTo node in greater depth. To do so, I need to take a detour and talk about another concept, entry points. You can think of entry points as a marker that indicates where the next input from a user will be processed. By default, the entry point is the start node. When you begin a conversation, every user input will be processed from the start node and onward through the flowchart until the flow ends or until an entry point has been hit. We've been working with one kind of entry point extensively, question nodes. When the flow hits a question node, it asks the user the question, and then the subsequent input starts from the question node. You can think of it as if the question node becomes the new start node. When the flow reaches another question, that question becomes the new entry point. We've been working with question nodes throughout the training, but I just haven't highlighted that they're entry points. Interestingly, other node types can be turned into entry points, like say nodes. Let's look at an example of this. In my original flow, I'll add a say node on the default branch of the initial lookup node. The flow will reach the default branch if it doesn't match any of the intents specified in the case nodes I've created. For my say node, I'll just put a message that says, I can help you with your baggage questions. The other thing I'll do is go into the styling section and make the label be welcome message. You'll see why this is important in a minute. I'll save, and if I say hi to my flow, it will say, I can help you with your baggage questions. Now I want to turn this node into an entry point. I'll open it back up, and in the vertical ellipsis in the top right corner, I'll select Set Entry Point. It saves this setting automatically without making you save the node. So what have we accomplished? I'll show you by going to my permitted items flow. If I go to the very end and open my GoTo node, I can select welcome message as the node I want to execute. This means that the conversation should go to the input flow and execute the welcome message node instead of the start node. Remember when I changed the styling option and added a label called welcome message? That's the label I see here in the select node drop-down list. Let's try it out. I'll start in the input flow and say, am I allowed to bring my Xbox on board? You can see that we switched to my permitted items flow and output the flight rules to the user. Then we switched back to the input flow and told the user, I can help you with your baggage questions. You'll find entry points referenced in other parts of Cognigy. For example, each intent can have an intent entry point that specifies where in the flow the user input should be sent if the intent is matched. I'll mention a couple of additional settings on GoTo nodes, though we won't look at examples now. Parse intents and parse slots gives you the option of passing control to the other flow and rerunning the NLP based on the intents and attached lexicons in the target flow. Absorb context is useful if you're using the default context feature, which we haven't covered yet. I want to introduce one other feature related to simplifying flows, attached flows. Attached flows are useful when you want to make the intents in one flow available in another flow. Let's imagine I had a large number of FAQ-style intents, just basic intents with simple answers, and I want to make them available in every flow. I could create a separate flow just for all of these common FAQs and attach them to my other flows. Let's look at an example. I'll create a new flow called FAQs. and I'll upload a set of travel-related FAQs. And train. I'll attach this flow to my main flow, and I could attach it to my other flows as well if I wanted to make the intents available there. I'll go to NLU, then Attached Flows, and then choose my FAQ flow. I'll need to train as well after I attach a flow, as well as when I make any changes to the intents in the attached flow. Now I can talk to my main flow and ask about what to do if I forgot my ID. You can see that the default reply from the attached flow is triggered, but I'm still in my main flow. If I go to the NLU in my main flow and look at my attached flows, you'll see I have an attach and sort option. If I click on the sort option, I can actually sort the order in which my attached flows are analyzed. Attached flows can be helpful for handling these kinds of common questions. Even though I use default replies, I could have managed responses in flows and it would work just as well. The thing to keep in mind with attached flows is that when you make changes to the attached flows, you need to train all of the flows to which that flow is attached. So there's a little more effort in building the model for all of your flows when you use attached flows. While we've talked in this session about go-to and attached flows, the bigger takeaway is the value of creating flows that are easy to understand and orchestrating them using go-to and attached flows.